Okay, here we go. This is the hoe flow drill. It looks like a lot, and it is a lot, but that's what horizontal flow is. But we're going to break it down, and it ends up being really simple. So right off the bat, we got 11 cones. That's what these X's are. Kind of different spots you'll make cuts to. And then you got 4 stations, A, B, C, and D, and you got 4 cutters at those stations. You'll start at those stations and end at those stations, but we'll get into that. Okay, so first thing you need to know is that all cuts are going to happen simultaneously. That the flow resembles a figure 8, so I know you got different, like 2 sets of arrows going on here and all conjecting at this weird B spot. Just know that it's a figure 8 flow. Wherever you're at, it's a figure 8 flow. That is the track you're on. You're going to stay on your path, and we'll get into what your path is and all that. You're going to cut to your destination, and like I said, we'll get into that in a second. But you're going to cut to your destination and then pause until everyone else arrives at their destination with a minimum pause of 3 seconds. So you don't want to go too fast. Like everyone gets there quickly, you still want to pause because that pause is going to recreate basically a handler reset, what happens in a real game. So we'll say that one cycle is when you cut, cut, and then pause. And that'll make sense here in a second. And then one thing to keep in mind is that in this figure 8 cycle, just know off the bat that B and C will trade places every time, and A and D will trade places every time. So even though it looks confusing, you're really just trading with the other person. So if you're a stretcher, you're always going to be a stretcher, so to say. If you're in the middle, you're always going to be in the middle. But we'll get into it. Okay, so we'll just start with A. And like I said, all of these are going to happen simultaneously. But if you're taking A as the first cutter, we'll just call them cutter A. You know, wherever you start, that's your letter. You're going to start either at A or start at D, or you'll start at B or you'll start at C. So if you're A, you're going to take the blue path until you reach D, and then you'll pause. So you'll come up for this, let's just call it the deep look option from the brake side. This is all assuming a force flick off the bat. Of course, you can mirror this drill for a force backhand, which will end up happening, but we'll just start with the flick force. A will come up to this cone up here on the blue path, and then come down to B and follow the blue path all the way to D, and then pause until everyone else gets to their spot. Okay, so then we'll just take B. If you start at B, you're going to take the blue path until you get to the green path. You'll follow the green path to C, and then you'll pause. And then if you're starting at C, you take the green path to B and then pause. So you come down, basically this is an IO or a backhand around brake option basically. And then you'll cycle through, and you won't come up. You're staying on the green path this time if you're C. And then you stop at B and you pause until everyone gets to theirs. And then if you're D, you are taking the green path to A. So you're literally just coming up, you're chilling out. You'll come down maybe as a last second IO or a round option, but then you clear to A and you pause. Okay. So what just happened was that A came all the way and went to D, D went all the way and went to A, B came around and came to C, and then C looped around and came to B. And that will happen every time. B and C will trade, A and D will trade. Okay. So there's just some nuances to sort of go through here, the takeaways. So like I said, we're assuming a force flick, and we'll mirror this to do a backhand. Basically, this top cone comes over here, and brake side is now from this brake side is now flick and all that. But so the pauses are representing when the handlers are resetting in game. Because what we don't want to do in a hoe stack is to be wasting our cuts when the handlers are trying to work. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be useless. We might want to offer bailout options in a real-time scenario, but for the sake of this drill, we're going to be just sort of getting this mentality down first until we can then adapt it to a real game scenario. So different cuts take different amounts of time. So this is going to work that sort of timing and making sure you're cutting properly and waiting for, you don't want to collide with another cutter. You want to time your cut and set up your cut properly so that it all flows properly. Cuts are kind of happening through the middle here at this B intersection point, and to the force side. And you're clearing to the sidelines is something to realize there. The thing that this kind of provides, this sort of flow, is you always have an undercut option, whether it's to the force side or to the brake side. And And then you'll always have the deep look, but that should pretty much always be coming from the break side, going deep. I'm just going through these bullet points here to make sure we cover them. You also have the option of putting 3 actual people here, handlers, who will swing the disc during those pauses to sort of just let you understand that as the disc moves, different cutters are going to have different priorities now, and you're going to be having to kind of sculpt your cuts a little differently, and realizing just the significance of each sort of person in that set. So that's the main bulk of it. In a real game scenario, if this B cutter comes under and gets it right off the bat, the next look can be this A cut, who can either do the continue deep, or if B does not get it, A is the next look, and they're coming under. And that's another thing to kind of understand about this, is that if you're starting at D, you're resting. It's really what you're doing. This is your cooldown. If you're coming over here and you're jogging around, you're staying out of the way, and you're just clearing through, because A, B, and kind of C, but mainly A and B are the playmakers here. A is given the deep look off the bat, B is given the under off the bat, cuts to the force side from a break side area. They're the big playmakers here. C can be a playmaker right off the bat if we get this really good around or IO, or this break is a really good option. So C is kind of involved, but you can see that the ones exerting the most energy are A and B. And keeping this flow down is really important, because if you've just made a big play, you went deep, you cut hard deep, and then you cut really hard under, you need to rest. You need a second to catch your breath or whatever. So that's why this is here. This is to chill out, stay out of the way. This is a slower cycle. And that's really the main takeaways here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. If you've already gotten what you need to know about this drill out of it, you can stop watching now. Obviously, pause and rewind for some of these other points that maybe were a little more complicated, or maybe I wasn't so clear. But yeah, I guess we can talk real quick. If it was a forced backhand, we would just flip this whole thing. We would just mirror it, and now cuts would be coming from the break side over here to the force side over here, and that's kind of the idea. So working through this, just cutting and then pausing, cutting and pausing. Maybe do 2 to 4 cycles of this until people have that down, because ideally you would take the cones away and people would know that, oh, I need to, if I'm here, if I'm on the break side, I'm kind of the ones I'm going to be setting up the cuts. I'm the one setting up the first power play. If I'm on the force side, I need to basically stay out of the way or get in position to make the follow-up play once the handlers reset it, if a cutter doesn't get it. Yeah.